I ventured out this year. I left my job as the chief product officer at Dribbble to start a brand new company. And that company is gigantic. My goal is to help you master the new influential disciplines that are driving results within organizations, like product leadership taught by Ben Foster, the former CPO at Whoop. It's not just video courses. We're combining video lectures with take-home assignments and exercises, and then small group mentorship to really help level you up, and all at a cost that most companies' learning and development budget covers. So if you're interested, go to gigantic.is, that's gigantic.is, sign up for a course, and I'll walk you through everything that you need to know. And if you enroll and let me know that you heard about this on Rocketship, I've got a special discount for you.
Welcome to the Rocketship podcast. I'm Michael Saka.
I'm Joelle Steiniger.
And I'm Matt Goldman.
And we're having 20-minute talks with entrepreneurs teaching you how to launch your product into revenue.
Check out our book at howtobuildarocketship.com to reserve your launch discount and to download a free chapter. Today we talked with Colin Nederkoorn, founder and CEO of Customer.io. You'll learn all about the early days and the tactics they used to build traction, and then how they converted that traction into an unconventional round of funding to rocket them to profitability. Hey guys, I wanted to take a minute to thank CodeShip for sponsoring the show. CodeShip makes continuous deployment simple and easy, and we've actually been happy customers of theirs for a very long time. You should go to codeship.io/rocketship to check out videos and tutorials all about how you can start using CodeShip to deploy your product in a better way.
We'd also like to thank InVision app. InVision is by far the best prototyping and collaboration tool on the market. I can personally say I can't imagine delivering another design comp without it. It made collaborating with our entire team incredibly easy, and the annotation tool alone saved us hours of back and forth. Go to invisionapp.com/rocketship and sign up to get their starter plan free for 90 days. This comes complete with unlimited screens and unlimited collaborators. Trust me, this is an essential tool for teams of all sizes. Welcome to the Rocketship podcast. We're here with Colin Nederkoorn, the founder and CEO of Customer.io. Colin, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for those that may not know, what is Customer.io?
Yeah, that's a great question. We really struggle to answer this question, but essentially we're an email marketing platform designed for web and mobile apps. So if you've got a product that people create accounts for and people sign up for that product, you hook in Customer.io and it'll give you the ability to send a bunch of emails that are traditionally really, really hard to send. So emails based on what those people are doing in your product.
Okay, awesome. And so how did you guys discover this problem?
Well, John, my co-founder, and I were always both really interested in analytics. And we were exploring doing an analytics product. And pretty much every company that we talked to, that we pitched our analytics product idea to, gave us this feedback that sounded something like, well, analytics is great. I've got 3 products that do that type of thing already. What would be really amazing is if you could take that data and then use it to do something, like email someone or send someone a text message to actually change their behavior. So I don't, it's not that valuable to me to have another place to look at what's happening. I actually want to influence what's happening. So that was the genesis of the idea. It's expanded a bit from there, but the goal has always been to kind of use the data, use analytics like data to send smarter emails to people.
Nice. So you guys raised a little bit, basically a seed round to kind of get to where you are today. Tell us about that experience of raising, and what are your future plans for kind of financing the company?
Yeah, so we've kind of treaded this line between the I guess it's a term that I came up with called Fundstrappers. We raise some money, but our intention going forward is to grow on the revenue of the business and not pursue additional funding. The folks that we work with, our investors are fantastic. They're primarily angel investors and the smaller funds that tend to do seed rounds. So we don't work with any big VCs or anything like that. And what we found is that the growth in the business was so strong, and that initial capital gave us the boost that we needed to really build a sustainable growing business. So it was fantastic at the time. I don't think we would have been able to do this without it. But from now on, we're just growing at, I think usually it's like 10 to 15% a month in revenue, that we don't see the need to continue raising capital.
Nice. That is really cool. And how do your investors feel about not taking on that Series A?
Yeah, it's interesting. Most of our investors have been really happy with the progress, or actually, I don't mean most. All of our investors have been really happy with the progress. So we haven't had anyone upset with us or yell at us for not pursuing further funding. We're in a bit of an interesting situation that I'm kind of working through right now, where we did our initial funding with a convertible note, and the convertible note has a maturity, and at the end of that, usually people convert into common stock. So we are kind of going through this process of having our investors convert early, since we're not doing another round. And that's probably a blog post that I'll write when it's all said and done. But it's not a common occurrence, and nobody really knows what happens when a convertible note doesn't convert from a later round. So it's an interesting experience, but our investors, have been tremendously supportive of us.
I've tried a lot to find out if there's a common way of handling convertible notes in the case that you don't raise a Series A round, and I cannot find anything about it.
Well, I'll write what we did at least and share that with you. But
it'll become best practice. What stage were you guys at when you raised the first round?
Well, we raised our friends and family. Okay. So on day one, we had 5 paying customers. So we decided to do this idea in January, and by April had a barely working prototype. And April 1st, 2012 was our first day working full time. And our target for that was to have at least 5 people paying us. They were all paying us $10 a month. So we had essentially like $50 in monthly recurring revenue on day one of being full-time on Customer.io.
Nice.
And we grew it from there. But by the time we raised our convertible note in 2 stages. And if I remember right, the friends and family, we had like a few $100s, or maybe even like $100 in recurring revenue at that time. And so, those folks know us really well and were investing in us. And then the round that when we extended the note and took in a bunch more money in January 2013, that I think at that point we were at around 5,000 a month in recurring revenue, maybe like 5 to 10, but nothing really significant.
This episode is brought to you by Miro. So when I was at Dribbble, over the 6 years, there was one tool that we would always use when we were doing cross-team collaboration. Whenever the collaboration started to get complex, we would bring in Miro. It made it incredibly easy to align stakeholders across regions and time zones, and definitely teams, with ease. And we were able to do all of that while being a completely remote team. It also has integrations into Jira, Azure, Rally, a lot of the tools that you're using already for product management and engineering. So you can import tasks from them as native cards, and it helps you see the big picture. It also helps stakeholders to understand what work needs to be done. It was incredibly valuable. And then they even have an estimation app that gives you a clear understanding of the work scope, lets you identify gaps, and then it has the ability for you to set clear expectations for delivery, especially when you're working across functions. So your first 3 Miro boards are free forever when you sign up today. Go to Miro.com/podcast. That's Miro.com/podcast.
And did that make a significant difference in how easy it was to raise a round with angels?
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky in that really early on, David Tisch, who does his investment group is Box Group. I had known him from before, and John, my co-founder, was really good friends with some other folks that he had invested in. So he had a lot of trust, I guess, in our team. So he took an early chance on us when we really had nothing to speak of in terms of revenue. And I think that it really helps to raise additional money when you have people that others know behind you already. So that certainly helped. But I think like our revenue trajectory was really what helped make it easier to raise money down the line.
So what did raising do for your growth? If you went from essentially $50 to 5, 6, 7,000 on your own, and then you raised that larger round, did your growth like skyrocket to some degree? Or did you continue to grow really at that same rate? It just allowed you a longer runway?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think it's a wonderful presentation, but it's starting to get around the community now. But Gail Goodman's presentation, she's the CEO of Constant Contact, on the slow SaaS ramp of death.
Yeah.
That's pretty much true, right? Like you start on day one and SaaS revenue is compounding, but you can't really shortcut it. So if you're starting a SaaS business, having savings or having investment gives you the runway that you need to get to the point where your revenue can cover things.
So share as much as you're comfortable sharing here, but I'm curious about the convertible note. What are the costs of preparing something like that? Did you have to work with lawyers, or were you able to find at least most of what you needed online and make modifications to a smaller degree with a lawyer? What are really the costs of raising a small round?
Yeah, and this is something that is always tricky, right? You're raising some money. It's going to cost you something to do that if you use a lawyer. But I think the risks of not using a lawyer are much greater than the costs of doing so.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that people choose convertible notes is the legal fees tend to be a lot lower than if you were doing a priced round. And I would certainly advise you to use a lawyer. We got introduced to a bunch of different law firms, and I didn't feel comfortable going with the like big named law firms. It just seemed like you would end up paying a lot and not get a lot for your money. And luckily, we were introduced to a fantastic lawyer who was independent but had worked at a bunch of the bigger firms, and kind of focused specifically on early stage internet companies. So she knew the exact advice to give us, and had been through a lot of these things before, and knew a lot of the even knew the counterparties at some of the investors that we had. So definitely use a lawyer. Try to find someone who's knowledgeable about tech. And I think if I remember right, the typical range for a convertible note, I think, is something like 5 to 10K in legal fees. You might might see higher than that, but I believe that's what you should expect to pay in legal fees.
And to be prepared to raise that, the proper structure as a C Corp?
Yes. Yeah. A friend of mine has an LLC and he's in the process of doing a raise, and pretty much any LLC will have to convert to a C Corp at the time they're doing a raise from your typical investor.
Interesting. Yeah, we've heard that a lot. I forget who I was talking to the other day, but they said that they structured as an LLC because one of their investors wanted that. I think since they were not going to be profitable for some time, and I think the loss, you can deduct more out of an LLC. So right. Even though they would have to convert down the road, they wanted the LLC structure from the start, but that doesn't seem too common.
So yeah, interesting thing about C Corps is you can't have ghost C Corps. So if you create a C corporation for your company, you have to have employees. And what we did initially, since we had full-time jobs and a C Corp, was we paid ourselves minimum wage as soon as we realized that you have to pay people yeah. and you have to pay them at least minimum wage, we paid ourselves minimum wage from the C Corp that we had.
That's awesome.
But yeah, there are no shortcuts there. Once you create a C Corp, you're committed to pay someone.
So transitioning back to your product, before you've said that you like to let people know what you stand for, that people buy what the company stands for just as much mm-hmm. as what the product does. Can you talk a bit about that and how you guys learned that? Maybe what you do to communicate that to your customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You're selling to a few different people. You're selling to potential employees. You're selling to potential customers, and I think it's important, especially so. The company that I was thinking of as after I wrote that to you was a company like Buffer. So Buffer's a really fantastic company. But if you look just at the technical nature of the product, someone might come along and say, well, hey, I can replicate that functionality, but you won't be able to unseat Buffer by replicating the functionality of their product, because that's not what people are buying. Or it's not just what people are buying. A lot of people pay Buffer monthly because they buy into the Buffer philosophy. And some of that has to do with remote teams. Some of that has to do with radical transparency into everything the business is doing, and people are making buying decisions at big corporations and at small companies too, based on the brands that they like. And if you can create a company or a company that people like and want to do business with, then if your product is sufficiently good, they'll pick you over a competitor. I think your product needs to back it up. But it's just as important to convince people that you're someone that they want to work with.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, how do you really do that on a practical basis? Is it through blogging? Is it through your marketing efforts? How are you showing who you are to your audience?
Yeah, I mean, it starts on your homepage. Ours is not particularly great at the moment, but it definitely starts there with the language that you use there. And when people sign up for your product, with the welcome email that they get once they sign up, and how you deal with problems that come up. When we have, we're an email product that sends on behalf of a bunch of other companies, and they rely on us for that type of thing. And when things go wrong, we have two choices. We can try to brush it under the rug, or we can be really open with people about, what happened, what we're doing to fix it, and take responsibility for the things that go wrong. And, we do our best to avoid issues, but we're human too, and those things happen. And the times that they've happened, and we've been really open with people about it, they've appreciated that openness. And I think in general, if as long as you're kind of working more than you're broken, then those situations where things go wrong are an opportunity to show people how you deal with that and increase their trust of you rather than decrease it.
Nice. So another thing that you mentioned was when you launch Follow the Money. I know there's got to be a good story behind this of listening possibly to the wrong people. Can you give us any insight into this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so I get a lot of value out of the Hacker News community. I don't know if you guys are there and read the comments when people post things, but if you were to, let's say you're launching your product soon and you decide to post it to Hacker News, by and large, most likely the people who reply in the comments about your product are not going to be the people who pay you for it. They might say, hey, your pricing is too high, or you don't have enough features, or whatever it might be. And you can listen to that feedback and get really discouraged. But the best feedback that you can receive is someone paying you for your service or for your product. And I would, listen to what those people have to say much, much more than anyone who's not paying you. Obviously, if people are telling you why they're not paying you, it's good to take that in. But yeah, I mean, really, like if you have a prioritized list of things to do, the priorities should be based on, what's strategically important for your business, as well as what the people who are paying you are asking for.
Awesome. Well, Colin, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing with us all about your funding. We weren't even intending to talk about that, but it's incredibly insightful. So where can we keep up with you and Customer IO online? Cool.
Yeah. So I'm Alpha Colin on Twitter, and Customer IO is just Customer IO on Twitter. Yeah, that would be a great place to keep in touch and send me tweets, and I'd be happy to chat with you there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Rocketship podcast. If you haven't yet, pop open iTunes and subscribe to be notified of future episodes. We have some really great ones lined up.
And while you're there, leave us a review. We really appreciate each and every one of them.
Hey, my name is Lovan Rumpf, and I've been working my ass off as a celebrity stylist by day and a podcast host by night. At the Low Life Podcast, it's all about keeping it real. We're talking fashion, beauty, to religion, sex, drugs, mental health. I mean, there's no topic off limits here, and vulnerability is mandatory. You can find my podcast, The Low Life, that's L-O, no W, everywhere and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. New episodes are out every Thursday. We'll see you then.
It's pretty eerie to know you're in a place that no human's ever been before.
This is Armchair Explorer, where the world's greatest adventurers tell their best stories from the road.
And 4 of us were swept down the side of the mountain, and then I knew there was no way out of this thing.
From the heart-pounding to the inspiring and the downright insane. Find Armchair Explorer, a part of APT Podcast Studios, wherever you get your podcasts.
Go and find what it is in the world that matches that wildness in yourself.